information available. There were documents. Well, prior to that time, they were not able to get access to these documents, but you were able to get access to what was called the McCollum Memo. Do you want to address that?
Yes. I started this investigation really in 1982, and I knew nothing about the communications intelligence of the U.S. Navy and the cryptographic information, even though I was part of the U.S. Navy, because that was a highly treasured secret. We did not want Japan or Germany to learn that we had broken their codes. So in 1982, I had to learn what was happening in the monitor stations. And so the cryptographers told me where I could find these records that would substantiate these really assertions at that time. So I filed Freedom of Information Act requests with the Navy, and they grudgingly gave out a little information, and I kept after it, and
okay, we've got a 4-minute break. We're going to be right back with Robert Stinnett, and we're going to talk about the documents that pretty much prove that this was a created event. We'll be back after this 4-minute break. Stay tuned. Gentlemen, war, what is it good for? I'll tell you what, they make a lot of money. And when you don't make anything in your country anymore, there's no manufacturing plants. Well, we got to make money somewhere. War is one of the best ways in the world to do it. Thank you for joining us today. We're talking about the Day of Deceit, ladies and gentlemen. This is a book. It's almost one of those must books to have on your library, The Truth About FDR and Pearl Harbor. I have had it on my shelves, and I have referred to it so many times. And I'll tell you what, if you got Bubba on the couch who says, oh my gosh, none of this stuff is real, wait till you read this book. You will see. And I encourage you to go to, let's see, do you have a website, sir?
It's on Amazon.com.
Right, the book is on Amazon.com, but you don't have another website then?
No, there's one on the Independent Institute that is on a website too.
Okay. Just Google or start page, whatever you use, Day of Deceit, The Truth About FDR and Pearl Harbor. You can go to Amazon.com and get the book. It is really a must to have. This is one to have and to cherish because of the documentation, pages and pages and pages. I mean, the appendix is almost as big as the book. And that tells me if I really like a book or not. It's got to have the appendix that it's at least 1/3 of the size of the book, and this certainly is. Let's go back to the McCollum document, because there were certain things that made people like you start to question. Although the story had been attempted to be made over and over and over again of how it all happened, even though Roosevelt was against the war. Now, he had said he was going to be against the European war. He was not going to get involved in this. And so now it's as if he had a decision to make. Now, what level do we think that this document, the McCollum document, went to? Do we know that it went all the way up to FDR?
The McCollum memo was written in October 1940, and it was a proposal to entice Japan to attack us at Pearl Harbor. And it was written by Arthur McCollum, who was head of the Navy's Far Eastern desk. He sent it to the head of Naval Intelligence, and he called for 8 provocations to be aimed at Japan. I can only trace it to the head of the Navy Intelligence, but all 8 provocations were signed into law by President Roosevelt. One of them was the pop-up cruises, sending U.S. cruisers into Japanese territory. The president called them the pop-up cruises, and he ordered them into the Central Pacific, also into the entrance to the inland sea. That's where Japan's Navy was based in 1941. So Navy records show that all 8 provocations were put into place. President Roosevelt signed them into order. One of them called for a complete embargo against Japan, which he signed as an executive order in July 1941.
And even though all of these documents came forward later on, there were 10 official U.S. inquiries that said that the U.S. government really had no involvement in this, or I'm not quite sure what their result was, but all of them sort of said, oh, we are so stupid, it was incompetence, we underestimated our enemy, the same kind of excuses that they use today.
Well, that is right. But you see, immediately after December 7th, the Navy started hiding all of their these communications and intelligence, these intercepts in vaults. So that was hidden until I started filing Freedom of Information Act in the late 1980s, and this was to protect all of the officers that were hiding this information from the American public. And so as they died off and new people came in, then they were not alert to what was contained in these damaging messages. So these Freedom of Information Act request is the one that helped me get all this documentation.
Let's go back to the cryptographic issue, the people that were breaking the Japanese codes. How do we know that U.S. signals intelligence was that advanced to where they could break the Japanese codes? After we get back from this 3-minute break, what evidence do we have that those codes had been broken and that we knew what Japan was going to do? We'll be right back with our guest, Robert Stinnett. The book is Day of Deceit. It is a must. The author of Day of Deceit, The Truth About FDR and Pearl Harbor. And you know what? He is so much more than an author. He is a man who dared to challenge the prevailing story. He dared to challenge this 20 years ago when we were all sitting around buying the story of how the bad guys came over and bombed the good guys at Pearl Harbor.